Hey, what's up, and welcome to another episode of Chad's Perspectives. I'm looking forward to getting into this, and I'm not going to waste a lot of your time because this one might run a little long. So I'm going to let my co-star do her thing, and we'll get right into it.
Welcome back to my dad's channel. If you're new here, make sure to click that like button and subscribe, and don't forget to share.
So look, without a long intro, let's just face it. We are all in the credit card points and miles game to get something, or at least get something for great and outsized value. But my biggest problem is when things are presented as free. So my first perspective is the fact that, and this is a fact, this is not subjective, this is an actual fact, is that there is no such thing as free travel. Now, talking heads will market that to you. People will try to use that as a selling point. They will offer you services for it. They will advertise it on Instagram, Facebook, and yes, even YouTube. But free travel is really a misnomer that's been propagated throughout the game. Now, I might have even said it in my beginnings, but because you are in a place that we want you to be a more discerning credit card user, I got to break this down for you and my perspective on so-called free travel. First and foremost, travel is only free when someone else is footing the bill, period. I don't care how many points you have. I don't care how much of a whiz you are. When your name is on there as the payer, I don't care what you had to give them, whether it was MR points or banana peels. It's not free. Travel's not free unless someone is paying. I just had to repeat that for the people in the back. Now, why is travel not free? Essentially, when you use your credit cards and you earn your UR points, your thank you points, your MR points, your Wells Fargo, whatever they call their points, all you're doing is prepaying to redeem those points later. Which brings me to a point that in all things with credit cards, you pay for everything. You don't get free CDW, you pay for that. Even on a no annual fee card, you are paying for everything. Because in addition to that, when you earn your points, guess what? You're paying for your points. Those are all cooked into the sauce. These banks are very smart. Please don't ever think that they're giving you anything for free because they're simply not. They would go out of business if they did, even with a small segment. So as an example, let's take the Amex Gold card, one of my favorite credit cards, a card that gets a lot of flack, but the fact is industry leader in groceries and restaurants. Let's just say you only use that card for groceries and restaurants. 4 points a dollar for every dollar spent. How much are those points? They're a quarter a piece. So for everything you pay, those points have an assigned cost, an assigned monetary value that you're actually earning. There's no getting around that. They're not magically given to you. So you need to factor these in with your subs and these redemptions that you're doing. Now, in addition to that, and I too have experienced it, when you do these redemptions for the so-called free travel, 99% of the time you have to pay taxes and or fuel surcharges and or booking fees in the case of Air Canada Aeroplan, so money's coming out. Yes, it's a greatly diminished amount of money, but that is literally the opposite of the dictionary definition of free. And according to Merriam-Webster, the definition of free is not paying anything at all. And even an example of that is an example that Key from Kiki's Adventures gave me, shout out Key, is that all the people aspiring to go to the Maldives for free, when you get there, there's a $600 plane that you need to take in order to get to the actual resort islands. That part's not free. You gotta pay for that. Luckily, from what I've heard, they do take credit cards, but that, once again, opposite of free. So let's go back to the sub example. Take me for instance. I've done some amazing redemptions to Europe, looking forward to going to the Middle East, got some more redemptions planned. I've done domestic redemptions, I've done them all. So when I got my Charles Schwab Platinum card, I got 100,000 MR points for $6,000 worth of spend. So I got that done. 6,000, got my 100K MR points. I deployed them to great use, but let's just kind of get a little objective here. Most people are going to do a lot more domestic travel than they are international travel. So let's take an example with British Avios. Now, Amex is a transfer partner with British Airways, and just in case you didn't know, you can use British Avios to book American Metal to take domestic flights for greatly reduced costs and just the cost of points. Now, the British Avios award chart actually charges more points for basically extra European travel outside of Europe than they do when you're actually using British Airways proper. So in other words, if you use their airline partners, you're going to pay more points but way less taxes. So now with that, on the Avios chart, I'm originally from New York. I like to go to New York, come back. That's a round trip from Florida. That's a little under 2,000 miles. And on the chart, those plane tickets, and I'll always use peak time, are 11,000 points each way. So that's 22,000 points per trip. Okay, which is fine. Now I've spent 6,000, got 100,000 points. So now 22,000 points per trip, that $6,000 has granted me, for lack of a better term, a little over 4.5 round trips. And you think to yourself, yeah, well, that's great, because in addition to that, all you had to pay was $5.60, since that's all you're going to get charged. That's the 9/11 fee. So, okay, $5.60. So let's add an extra, what, 23, 24 bucks. I'm not even going to do the math here to the 6,000. I can also say that it's about $1,300 per round trip to New York. And I have a feeling that using flights.google, I could probably have found better plane tickets to get me more round trips for less money. This is just an example. So a lot of people will be in the comment section or even watching this video rolling their eyes. Here he goes again, so on and so forth, just taking the wind out of our sails. It's not that. I just want you to have a full understanding of what it is you're getting yourself into in the credit card game, and especially those who have either started off on fire like myself or are kind of, pulling back and trying to settle things out towards an end game like myself. But there are other people who are out there guns blazing, all gas, no brakes, which I totally respect. But understand the points and exactly the redemptions that you're using these points for, and know that they're never free. You've already prepaid for them. Now, on the flip side, another great example is when you get huge value that you've prepaid for. So I have a redemption for Qatar Q Suites, which I got almost over 9 cents per point for. With those, that's $15,000 worth of airfare that I know for a fact I didn't spend 15 G's getting the points to get there. You know what I mean? I don't have the exact numbers, but I know for a fact that these points work better when you get outsized value. Now, everyone's not a traveler. I understand. Everyone's not an international traveler. Totally get it. But that is where you're going to get the greatest amount of value for your prepayment. So if you stuck around this long, you're probably saying, well, you know what? I totally agree with him, but I'm quote unquote team cashback. By the way, there are no teams. There's only team prepay for everything because credit card companies are not stupid. So that's another misnomer, but whatever makes people feel happy. But so, okay, you're a smart guy. You do cashback because those points and the availability and the reward space too much, because I speak in cold hard cash, and you can't eat a point or whatever, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of things to be said. But for you people who are strictly cash back, I'm going to let you in on a little secret that you might not know. Inflation never turns off. And just like the people who are paying for points understand a lot of cash back cards, they issue your cash back in a point system so that they can be interchangeable if you have an anchor or a gateway card, as I like to call it. So now, if inflation does not turn off, and the most running multiplier, what you want for a catch-all is probably a 2x card or a 2% cash back card. And the average inflation, historic inflation for the United States, has been 3% every year. Now, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I know how math works. And if your dollars are 3% less valuable and you're only getting 2% of, I'm seeing a deficit here. So then others will say, well, I have a 5% cashback setup. That's wonderful. Remember, every year, your money's on average 3% less valuable than it was before. So you've lost that percentage. You've done all of this and you still lost the percentage. Inflation never turns off. So you have people who will hoard points to buy Christmas gifts, buy birthday gifts, normally for larger purchases because no one's really running around the bank screaming, look at me, I redeemed $2.40. Thank you, goodness, for the Wells Fargo Active Cash. That is just not something that's going to happen. And you're not going to get the huge outsized value from said points for cash because cash is much more tangible, it's more readily available, and banks are simply not going to let it go. And as a bit of a horror story, within the last couple of years, inflation has actually gone up as high as about 9%. So if you weren't at least getting 9 cents per dollar on your points, or I'm sorry, 9 cents per point, you weren't even beating inflation regardless of whether you were team travel or team cash back. It's just to give you an idea of what it is that you're dealing with in the free travel game. So that's about it for that one. Look, I'm just telling you, I'm not trying to take the wind out of your sails. I have credit cards. I get the points. I want my points. I love my points. I'm going to do all the redemptions I can, but I look at this as it is. It's simply not free. I don't care who told you it was free. I don't care what their sub count is, how great the production value on the videos are. I don't care if they yell it on a TV screen. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as free travel. There's points travel. There's redemptions. But travel isn't free. So, just want to leave you with that one. And on to the next one. Now here's my next thing, and this should go without saying because it's totally related to the free travel. Effective annual fees do not exist. Look, I even put it in the glossary video that I did. I understand. I was of the mistaken understanding. Now, I've said this on my channel before, but I will go over it again here. Effective annual fees is an economic term. It's a buzz term. Look, the only effectiveness depends on you. So, yes, the gold card, I will use that example again. You will hear that it effectively costs $10. It's an effective annual fee of $10. You have $120 worth of credit here and $120 worth of credit here with the $250 annual fee. Boom, $10, you're in the clear. Wrong. That's very wrong. That is just wrong. Just come here. Come here. You still paid $250. Only in the credit card game do you hear people say an effective annual fee. You know, originally it cost $695, but I got this and that. No, you still paid $695. If I take $100 and I go to the store and I buy $200 worth of food with it in some weird sense, I don't go to the store and say I spent effectively negative $100. If you go somewhere and you get something of outsized value, like jewelry, somebody gives you a lowball sale on some item that's worth more than what you paid for, you don't say, I effectively, how much did you pay for that? Oh, I effectively gave them $300, but I effectively spent $4. No one talks like that. Only in the credit card game. Effective annual fees are a total misnomer, and just the biggest one as free travel. You pay your annual fee because it's your annual fee. And what you do is you purchase value that you yourself are responsible for using. So when people get aggravated with cards because they are not using the value that is imbued in those cards, it's not the card issuer's fault. It's your fault. Yes, you. You signed the terms and conditions, you accepted the card. If it's really that hard for you to click a couple extra times, well, that's really your business. If it's forcing you to spend money on things that you would normally spend on, that too is your problem. If you are overpaying for things in order to take advantage of a card's value that you've paid for with the annual fee, well, effectively, that doesn't really exist anymore because now you're overpaying for something. So no, it's not $10 anymore. That is the refrain I tend to hear about the gold card as far as Uber and the price of food is concerned. These are all things that you need to think about. That's just how math works. Like, you'd be surprised how many people don't terribly understand how math works. It's math. The word's only 4 letters, and that's an abbreviation. But that's what it is. I just don't know how to say it in any other way. Pay your annual fee, use your value. But trust me, you've paid your annual fee in the most effective manner up front. So, for my next perspective, and this is one that my man Lonnie from Call Me Lonnie, shout out to Call Me Lonnie, he would appreciate. Read your terms and conditions. I see a lot of people play this game without reading the terms and conditions of the cards that they sign. There's important stuff in that paperwork. These are the things that outline and enshrine the value that you're going to get from all of these cards that you have, regardless of the annual fee, even if they are no annual fee. Read your terms and conditions. So a lot of people will talk about one of my favorite cards again, the Platinum card by American Express, and all the travel protections that is premier travel card. But what conditions do you have to satisfy in order to use those protections? So like, did you know that on the Platinum card, your baggage claim insurance, your baggage insurance, do you know that it's not covered if you use a combination of any sort of points and frequent flyer system except for American Express MR points and cash, or just exclusively charging it on the card? Did you know that? That on some of these redemptions you think you have bag protection and you don't because you did the booking through British Airways or Virgin Atlantic or Air Canada or Avianca, and you paid with your Platinum card thinking that your baggage was protected? It isn't. And don't argue with me. You literally can go on the Amex site and look up the actual, it's about 5 pages, and actually read this. You're not covered unless you are booking said trip with a mixture of cash in the form of payment from a qualified card, your Amex Platinum card, and MR points exclusively. You have no coverage. Bye bye. And I'll have you know that the Amex Gold card, which is normally shunned for not having any travel protections, actually has that same protection. And yeah, it's the same as the Platinum. And now conversely, the Platinum card's trip delay insurance will actually cover you as long as you pay some portion of said trip with the Platinum card, and you are free to use any other frequent flyer program, MR points, or what have you, as long as you issue the Platinum card as a source of cash payment for any part of that, including the taxes and fees, then you're covered. You see the big difference? They can delay your trip and you'll be covered, but if they delay your bag, you're kind of on your own if you didn't read the fine print, which is in what? The terms and conditions. And once again, as a feather in the gold card's cap, it has that trip protection as well. And this is a card that is notoriously stated as having no travel protections. And not just to pick on Amex. The Chase Sync Business Cash, as Luke from Luke's Points and Miles pointed out, shout out to Luke, if you use that card to rent a car for business purposes, the CDW, the primary CDW, goes into effect. But what if they prove that you have not used that card for business purposes? Now all of a sudden, you are no longer covered. So this is one of those things, like I said in my last video, a lot of people masquerading as businesses, doing a lot of personal stuff. These kind of things can get hairy. And lastly, trip interruption and cancellation insurance, which the gold card does not have. When you use your Platinum card, understand one condition that a lot of people tend to miss. It needs to be a round trip. Now, they said you can either book a round trip ticket or a combination of round trip and or one ways or what have you. But that trip needs to be a round trip. You can't make the claim until you return to your city of origin or your airport of origin within a reasonable distance from where you live. That is another thing that you really need to look out for. So now with all these things considered, you might want to start looking at that alliance trip protection that they tend to offer you with the plane carriers, because if you read the terms and conditions there, in some cases they may be more favorable than even your credit cards. Oh, and if you pay extra, you get the points for that too. And finally, as always, I end these with a YouTube perspective. And this YouTube perspective is, look, let your life be dictated on YouTube. Don't let YouTube dictate your life. I can tell you, as a burgeoning creator, obsessing over every view and every sub, you're gonna drive yourself crazy. I don't care if you get huge, I don't care if you stay small. This is not life. Life is health. Life is wealth. Life is family. Life is a lot more things than just checking the studio every day and marveling at the fact that a video that you thought was going to get 4 views got 17. Big deal. It's like being the richest guy in a game Monopoly. You know, for the time being, it's cool, but in the main scheme of things, no one really cares until you move the needle. So, this is what I'm telling my newer creators. Please do not obsess over this process. I know it's difficult to do, but believe me, let your content speak for itself. And I'm going to tell you this right now. When you start, you're boring. When you start, you ramble. When you start, it sounds bad. And I've said this in another YouTube perspective before, but just remember, this is not life. Do not obsess. It will make you an irritating human being to those around you. If I've covered this before, it's because it is very important. It's just a hobby. It's just a thing. It'll be okay. So, that is pretty much it. That is my YouTube perspective. This is where I do my pointy thing. And because I know this video is long, I'm not even going to say anything clever, but I will cross my fingers like this, and I'm going to tell you, take it easy.